Bills, school supply receipts, medical bills, everything I had saved for 15 years. Here are all the expenses I covered for the girls for 15 years. Private tuition, private health insurance, extracurricular activities, clothes, food, all documented. The social worker reviewed the documents for half an hour. Sir, this clearly shows you have covered all basic expenses and more. Is there any reason why the minors would sign these statements? Because their adoptive parents convinced them they needed access to a family trust they can no longer touch. I explained the whole situation with the trust, the adoption, and Mark's call. The officer and the social worker exchanged glances. Do you have proof that the adoption was motivated by money? The officer asked, Does a recording work? I took out my phone. I had recorded the entire conversation with Mark about the trust fund. I played the recording where Mark admitted his lawyer told him he had the right to manage the trust and where his frustration was clear when I told him I knew nothing about the money. This is highly irregular. The social worker said we will need to investigate these accusations further. But from this perspective, it seems someone is using the system for financial pressure. They left after 2 hours, but not before the officer told me something that chilled my blood. If these accusations proceed, they will try to request a restraining order and an asset freeze. Have your papers in order. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not only had they tried to rob me, but they had turned my own daughters into weapons to potentially send me to jail. The next day, I did something I knew would complete their ruin. I called the financial aid offices of both universities where Sophia and Camila were supposed to go. Good morning. I need to formally withdraw my statement of financial support and my guarantee as a co-signer for my daughter's student loans. Is there a problem? Sir, they are no longer legally my daughters. They were adopted by another man. Therefore, I am no longer responsible for their educational finances. Furthermore, they just filed a formal complaint accusing me of child abuse and financial neglect. There was a long pause. Sir, this will trigger an immediate review of their enrollment. Without verified paternal financial support, their adoptive father will have to take responsibility for their financial obligations. He was the one who adopted them specifically to access their educational trust fund. A week later, the effects began to be felt. Camila called me crying, Dad, I need you to help me with something urgent. I'm not your dad anymore, comma. Legally speaking, please just listen to me. My university enrollment was canceled, and I also have a $5,000 credit card debt. It was for a trip to Cancun that Mark gave us, but now he says I have to pay for it. So Mark was already withdrawing his generous gifts now that the plan had failed, and why would that be my responsibility? Because you caused us emotional trauma with your cheapness all these years. It's the least you can do. The coldness with which she said it left me speechless. They had just formally accused me of abuse and still expected me to solve their problems. According to the county family court, that responsibility now belongs to Mr. Mark Martinez. Call him Dad Dash. I blocked her for the first time in my life. I blocked my own daughter. That afternoon, I bought myself a Pack 5. It was my stopwatch for the end of this nightmare. For the party, I formally asked Elena to accompany me. She was a woman I had started dating after meeting her at the gym, something I never could have done when my entire life revolved around the responsibilities of being a single father. During our dinner before the party, I realized something painful. They hadn't just stolen my role as a father, they had stolen years of my life that I would never get back. The night of the party, I adjusted my cufflinks in the mirror. The man reflected back had survived the most ruthless attempt at personal destruction he had ever witnessed. I arrived at the Crystal Palace in a chauffeur Mercedes. When Elena and I walked in, I saw them. Mark sweating in a rented suit, my ex-wife nervous, Sophia and Camila confused, not understanding why their university enrollments had been canceled that week. Their faces when they saw me showed pure terror, but also confusion. For a moment, they didn't recognize me. The man walking in was completely different from the tired father they had seen in court 2 months ago. A perfectly tailored suit, a transformed physique, accompanied by a beautiful and successful woman who looked like she had stepped out of a magazine. Mark visibly appalled. He realized he had completely underestimated his victim. This was not the defeated loser he expected to see. I nodded towards them. The real guests were arriving. The presentations, including the false abuse allegations, were loaded on my laptop. "Ready?" Elena whispered to me. "The show is about to begin." I walked to the small stage in the ballroom. The murmur of conversations gradually faded. All eyes were on me. The real guests I had carefully chosen, Mark's creditors, Don Carlos with a vengeful smile, and of course, my former family in the center of the room, paralyzed with confusion. "Good evening," I said, adjusting the microphone. "Thank you for joining us for this very special celebration. I organized this party to commemorate a significant transfer, a transfer of a duty, a responsibility, and a future." I connected my laptop to the projector. The giant screen behind me lit up. For 15 years, I worked 2 jobs to give my daughters what they deserved. The first slide showed my bank statements. Overtime, double shifts, every cent reinvested. "Sophia, you said my budget spreadsheets were humiliating. Here is the final spreadsheet." $447,000 appeared on the screen. A woman in the front row gasped, "And this is their grandmother's gift." I projected the trust fund and the adoption decree side by side to $1 million. But as you can see, as of May 15th, they are no longer legally my daughters. This money is now legally mine. My ex-wife shot up from her seat. "You stole the girl's money." I stole the money I saved for 15 years. I stole the trust fund that legally reverted to me when you stole my daughters from me. Let's talk about theft. Mark, the screen showed his debts. $400,000 to private lenders, a bankrupt business. My daughters traded a guaranteed college education for a con man. Mark tried to get up, but his creditors immediately surrounded him. But the best part is yet to come. My